Tonight, our special coverage on Israel's war in Palestine as Israel offers a temporary truce with Hamas to free prisoners. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Today is the 74th day since Israel started its indiscriminate war on Palestinians. Israel has attacked the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, resulting in the loss of at least 46 lives and dozens wounded, according to the health ministry. The Jabalia Medical Center has received 46 bodies and treated 110 injured individuals throughout the day. Reports reveal that Israeli forces raided the Al-Awda hospital in northern Gaza, where they arrested, stripped, bound, and interrogated individuals within the hospital premises. Earlier in the day, a pre-dawn Israeli airstrike in Rafah claimed the life of a 17-day-old baby. Numerous people remain trapped under the rubble of buildings destroyed by Israeli bombings. The Palestine Red Crescent Society Ambulance Center in Jabalia has been surrounded and besieged by Israeli forces from all directions. Israel's takeover of the Jabalia refugee camp marks one of the most intense assaults since the conflict began. In a potential development for peace, Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas's political office, is currently in Cairo, possibly indicating a new phase of truce negotiations. At the time of writing, the death toll from Israeli attacks has reached 20,000 Palestinians. Israel's revised death toll stands at 1,139. The UN Security Council has postponed the vote on a Gaza ceasefire resolution for a second time, as disagreements persist within the Biden administration. Efforts are underway to prevent a third U.S. veto related to Israel's war in Palestine. The vote, which was originally scheduled for Monday, has been repeatedly delayed due to differences between the UAE and the U.S. regarding language concerning a cessation of hostilities and UN aid monitoring. While the U.S. mission in New York believed it had negotiated a text it could abstain from, there were new objections. The White House is taking a more pro-Israel stance than the State Department. The draft resolution calls for aid deliveries to Gaza and UN monitoring of humanitarian assistance. The U.S. seeks to tone down language for calling an urgent suspension of hostilities. The U.S. and Israel oppose a ceasefire, preferring pauses in fighting to protect civilians and secure the release of prisoners taken by Hamas. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has emphasized the need for a sustainable ceasefire in Israel's war in Palestine. He calls for the release of prisoners while maintaining that the UK is not advocating for an immediate general ceasefire. Amid escalating ground fighting in Gaza and a worsening humanitarian crisis, leaders are growing more critical of the Palestinian civilian casualties. Last week, U.S. President Joe Biden criticized Israel's, quote, indiscriminate bombing and called for a change in strategy. Sunak reiterated Britain's support for Israel's right to self-defense, but stressed the importance of adhering to humanitarian law. While the UK abstained from a recent UN vote for an immediate ceasefire, Sunak's spokesman emphasized the need for immediate humanitarian pauses leading to a lasting ceasefire. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has announced Israel's willingness to initiate a new temporary truce with Hamas in Gaza in exchange for the release of more prisoners. The move follows international pressure on Israel to halt its Gaza assaults and allow more humanitarian aid into the region. A previous truce mediated by Qatar and Egypt led to the release of Israeli and Palestinian prisoners in November. Recent talks in Poland involving Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, Mossad director, and CIA director explored potential deals for prisoner release and a humanitarian pause. However, Hamas expressed reluctance towards negotiations while calling for an end to aggression and aid access. Experts believe that the statements from Herzog and Hamas indicate some progression towards a potential truce. Israeli soldiers have raided and vandalized the Freedom Theater in Jenin, a symbol of peace and hope in the West Bank. The soldiers defaced the theater with religious and political symbols, including the Star of David. The operation occurred on the night of December 12 and early hours of December 13, resulting in the arrest of the theater's 2 directors. One of them, Ahmed Abbasi, was released after 14 hours, but the other, Mustafa Shita, remains in detention. He is believed to have been taken to Megiddo military prison in northern Israel. The Freedom Theater, initially established in 1987, has faced previous attacks, but has persevered as a beacon of hope for the Palestinian community. Its recent raid is part of broader Israeli military operations in Jenin, leading to hundreds of arrests and ongoing tensions in the West Bank. Despite the adversity, theater staff vow to continue their vital work with traumatized children and remain hopeful for global artist support. And in related news, medical professionals are debating over whether they have a responsibility to speak out against the war. Dr. Osaid Eser, a Gaza native and Texas Tech University researcher, has called for a ceasefire, emphasizing it as an ethical duty. However, not all medical workers share this view, citing the traditional principle of medical neutrality. The American Medical Association recently declined to discuss a resolution for a Gaza ceasefire, with some members hesitant to label the conflict as just or unjust. The concept of medical neutrality is rooted in history, but does not necessarily imply impartiality. With the intense Gaza war straining healthcare services, some are questioning the limits of this principle. Gaza's healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, with only a third of hospitals operational. Elser and others have documented the toll on healthcare workers, including doctors and nurses, many of whom have been killed or detained. Calls for a ceasefire have come from healthcare unions, advocacy groups, and public health professionals, although the medical community remains divided over the issue. Some argue that healthcare workers have a duty to condemn war crimes under international humanitarian law. Others stress the need for diverse opinions on the ethics of the conflict. Regardless, Dr. Elser and others believe that advocacy for their homeland and people is an essential aspect of their profession. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue